Hello, it's Sheena Douglas here, and what you're looking at is one of the sets I've put together using the brand new wonderful fantasy paints from Pipettes. This is a neutral set, and what I've done is I've put them into sets, 3 different sets. This is how they'll come to you in a box all together like this. And you actually wonder how all that got in there, but it did. And this is what you're going to get when you get your set. Now this is the, like I said, this is the neutral. There's neutrals, there's warms, and there's cools. Now this is not how they come from Pipettes. This is something I've put together to make things quite easy for buying the colours and colours that are going to match for you, similar to the fantasy to the Paint Fusion range. What we've got, first of all, they're looking at, you've got pipettes, alright? You get 5 pipettes in the set. These are for lifting your paint out. So basically we put them in the jars of paint, squeeze them, and they'll draw the paint up. I don't use these too often. I use these are more for larger application areas. And I'll tell you now, these are oil-based paints. They're not water-based like acrylic paints or paints that you might have used before if you're a paper crafter. They're oil-based, so what you need to clean up with them, it's good news though, it's not expensive, it's cheap as chips, and it's readily available, is ordinary white spirit, you know, the terp substitute that you get for cleaning your gloss brushes. So what you would do when you've used the pipette, for example, and you've picked up the paint, you drop it on your area. If you want to just swirl it on, you would pop it into the jar of some the white spirit, squeeze it again, and just keep squeezing until it runs clear, and then just dry it like this, and it's good to go. So they're the pipettes, so we'll pop those to one side. The other thing before we get to the actual paints is you're going to get 2 of these sun relief. This is a dimensional raised paint that is really raised from the area, and I've got one here to show you. In every set, whether it be the neutral, the warm, or the cool, you're going to get an imitation lead, but then you're going to get a different colour. In this set, neutrals, I've put a black in there, being neutral. In the cools, I've put a silver, and in the warms, there's a gold, as well as obviously the imitation lead. And this is what this looks like. It's a really fine little nib here. You don't have to cut that off, just tell you now, because I know someone who did cut that off and thought, why were they getting really thick chunky lines? You don't, it's ready to go. But when it's new, you will find it's got a seal over there, so you have to puncture it. I just use the lid just to pop it in there to puncture the seal. Then pop the point on, and then this is how you apply it. You apply it by using it raised, lift it off this area, and then just drag across like this, nice even pressure, and you're going to get a nice even straight line like that, and that will dry raised, so then it'll act as a barrier for paints if you want to put them next to each other and them not run. But this is all going to be covered in further videos. This is just a very quick introduction to your Pipettes paint, the fantasy paint, and the set you're going to get. So we'll pop that to one side. Now I'm just going to wipe that up. So this is another thing, if you use a non-stick craft sheet, you can actually even practice on that if you want. I would practice on you know, just a couple of lines just to get the hang of it. It doesn't take too much, but just know that if it's not perfect, if you're thinking this isn't looking spot on, it doesn't have to be. When you get the paint in there, it's all going to look good. Now these are the paints. These are all the fantasy paints, and if you look, you may notice that there's 2 different names here. We've got the Prism and we've got the Moon. Now there's 5 prisms in the set. These for me are the bulk of what I'm using for my projects. These are the extra embellishment ones. They're all wonderful, but they do look different when they dry. Hopefully you can get an indication of what the colours are like. When they're set neutral, I mean, there's anything but neutral or boring here. These are stunning. So don't think you can't do full projects with just the one set even. If you look, they are amazing. Now, to mention, they've all got, if you see the bling and the gorgeous reflection, that's mica. So what you need to do is, when your paints are, especially when they're new, you're going to need to stir them really well, because the mica will have settled. Let's just take one here to show you. When you take the lid off, you see this is a brand new paint, this one here. It's separated, it looks transparent. You know that's not good to go. That's not how it should look. Alright, I have one I've already stirred, and I'm going to show you here what this same paint looks like when it's stirred. Can you see the difference? It's all mixed in. It's all a nice thick consistency. There's nothing sticking to the bottom. There's no mica clinging to the bottom, and that's it. Now, speaking of stirrers, you can see I use the handles of my paintbrushes because that's something I've got readily at hand and available. That's about as fancy as you need to get. You can get wooden cocktail sticks, not cocktail sticks, you know, the big skewers. You can use something like that. Anything that will work as a stirrer is good. Spoon handle, but then why would you? Because you've got to clean it up more. One thing to mention, when I've used my paints, see what I'm doing? I'm scraping them back into the jars. I really am that crafter. I don't want to waste anything. When you're finished with them, you don't have to even dip them into the white spirit to clean them. Just a piece of kitchen roll. You wipe it and you're good to go for the next time. That's it. Okay, so let's show you how they look now. Let's do a little bit of painting. So hopefully now you can see this absolutely gorgeous, well, the tile's not gorgeous, but the colours are amazing. I'm hoping that you're getting the reflection and you're getting the texture and the facets and the intensity of the colour here. And this is just an ordinary tile I've used just to practice a few little bit of colour combinations. This is what I would suggest you do when you get your set as well. Is it doesn't have to be a tile, just a bit of board, anything that's to hand, just so you can drop a little bit of paint on, see how it works, and then you can maybe just, if it was a tile, keep it once it's dry. Right next to it, write the number, for example, write down which paint it was, and then write down the 3 paints you've used. Maybe use a number system for your jars so you know. So what you're looking at here is all of this first row is just the Prism paint. That's it. That's just drop on the tile. That's what happens to it. It looks amazing. The paint does everything. You don't have to do anything. You just drop it on. I'll show you. It does it. These 3 here, these first 3 rows, this is an example from the cool set, this is an example from the neutral, and this is an example from the warm. All I've done is put 3 of the colours next to each other, just to show you how you don't even have to blend. If you put the wet colours next to each other, without that liner, without this, okay, they're going to just want to move in and kind of draw each other's colours into them, and you're going to get this gorgeous natural blending. It looks fantastic, so you don't even have to be artistic with that. If you look at the way this, from the pink to that orangey colour to the red, it's just done its own thing and it looks fantastic. These ones here, this block here you're looking at, is just the moon colour. So Prism Moon. You can see it dries differently. It hasn't got this kind of pitted look to it. It's more of a mother of pearl look. It would just look more like cracked ice. Now, these last ones here, you see it's where it's run into that? That's why we use that liner if you don't want that to happen. Even if it's just close enough, they can just draw each other in and it can ruin your project. So if you want defined areas, that's what the lining's for. But these ones you're looking at are combinations of both the Prism and the Moon. And I'm going to show you how that works. So you've got the tile here. So let's get it in shot for you so you can get really close up here. Hopefully you're going to be able to see this area here on the tile. And what I'll do is we'll just put some of the Prism down. I'm going to show you what it looks like when you first put it on the project. You'll see it'll look nothing like what you're looking at now. So all I'm going to do is pick up a little bit of the paint from my brush. Don't dip the whole of the brush or the stick or whatever you're using to apply this into the pot. You'll just waste it and it'll be right at the handle and it'll be messy, and you don't need to do that. I like to use this because then I can control a smaller amount. Like I said, if you want to put more on, you can always use the pipettes for that, for larger projects. Now look, that looks nothing like that to me, but it will. So if you've done that and you think you've done it wrong, you haven't done it wrong. That's all good. That's fine and dandy. Now let's have a look and see what the moon looks like. This moon colour that we're going to use. So we're going to give it a good stir again. If you can't see it, but you can hear it. That's me. Every time I'm going back to a paint, I'm giving it a really good stir. This is what the moon's going to look like. Not the actual one, but this is just an idea of what this one looks like. And when it dries, it's going to dry all pearly and swirly and pretty like this, but different to the one next to it. Okay, and remember, this is the one you can brush on, so on cylindrical objects and things, this one's good for that. Now I want to show you one of my favourite things. Now there's going to be more techniques and more tips and things coming up. This is just a very starter for 10 introduction, so you can get started and get playing. Right, check this out. So this is the same colour. This is the prism again, in that onyx colour. Okay, right, gorgeous. See how I'm just pushing the paint out. If it gets too thin, it's too thin. It won't do its thing if you thin it out too much, just so as you know. Alright, so, and oh, I forgot to mention, this lasts so long. These are my original jars I've been using for about 6 months now, while I've been working on the whole Fantasy Fusion range, experimenting. Now, this is the moon. I'm using a different colour here. It's this colour here. I'm just going to go and put a tiny little drop, just a few random drops. I find that if I want more of a faceted kind of cracked look, smaller dots are better than larger dots. I'll show you what I mean. I'll explain that in a minute. Now, this is where people are going to think you're a little bit sad like me, but that's fine. We've got each other. You're going to want to watch paint dry. I know it's sad, but there you go. Because that there looks nothing like anything like here. But it will. Okay, can you see how this one we just put on? It looked pretty okay, but not very exciting. It started to do its little split thing, and it's going to go like this. Now we'll come back to that and let's show you some finished projects.